economists aren't inventing a new idea. If they're very good, what they're doing is they're describing human behavior and what people already do. And that's what makes us pretty unique. And I find it really interesting.
Yeah, me as well. Very cool. Okay, so to kick it off, how about we talk about it's going to be kind of I'm sure most of our listeners, I would anticipate all of them know kind of what Hawaii's economy entails on a high level as far as, industries, right? We have tourism, we have government, we got the a lot of military. We all know we're an island, right? We have issues as far as like shipping and isolation. Um, and it's hard to compare us, Hawaii, economically to we're just very unique. But if you want to I'd love to hear it in your words, just kind of, a little 101 talking to somebody who hasn't been to Hawaii, is unfamiliar, but just what makes up Hawaii's economy as far as like industry and driving growth.
Sure. The number one industry for sure is tourism. That's our visitor expenditures. That's between 17 and 23% of our GDP. And then there is military. And military is a little different from all local government and even federal government. And that's because it plays a really important role. The reason Hawaii is a state is because of our geostrategic location in the Pacific. If you look at a map of the Pacific, there's only one place where there's a deep water harbor, and that is Pearl Harbor. And the powerful nations, when it was a lot more in the 1800s, were all very interested in controlling this. The United States ended up with it, and now it is the largest Indocom. It's the largest command center for the U.S. military. 1 out of 11 people that live in Oahu are either active military or dependent on those people. There's another 20,000 civilian contractors that work for DoD. So it is a huge part of our economy. And those two aspects of our economy is almost about half. It's pretty. A lot of people in Hawaii are very frustrated by the lack of diversification. However, I would say most islands are not very diversified. So, depending on how you look at it, tourism 17 to 22%. If we would go to Fiji, tourism is 50% of their GDP, and if you look at Caribbean islands, it's much higher. So in a lot of ways, Hawaii, a lot of people are frustrated because we compare ourselves to the continental United States, which is probably the most dynamic economy to ever exist on the face of the planet. And it's hard to compete with those people, right? But like we compare ourselves to other islands or other island chains, we really hit above our weights. So we're for sure the richest island chain in the world, bar potentially some like tax haven. It's a small island that's a tax haven. And relative to our country that we're a part of, we are much closer in terms of our GDP or income per capita. So if you can take for example, the Canary Islands, which are part of Spain, or the Azores, or Okinawa, which is part of Japan, all those people are like kind of tropical islands, a couple thousand miles away from mainland. They usually are like 30 or 40% poorer than the mainland, and we're 12%. They're 5% poorer than the mainland. So we definitely hit it for an island. We do great for states. We are slightly below average. Well, in terms of income, we're above average, but when you adjust for a cost of living, we're below average. I think that one of the more frustrating things is not what we are, but how we've been doing. And one of the frustrating things to a lot of people in Hawaii is Hawaii used to have a income per capita much higher than the rest of the United States. And so over the last 40 years, we have gotten less of that. So we were really living off of the druthers of the visitor industry, which was booming until about the 1990s, and has pretty much leveled off. And the military, which is ebbs and flows, but it's been a constant and a very important constant for Safeway.
Gotcha. And you brought it up there, so I want to kind of dive into that a little more, the diversification. So again, you're the expert in the field, but this is my layman's term of how I see it, diversification, right? So there can be a risk when you're too concentrated in a couple industries, I'm assuming, right? But diversification, like how it works and mainly what this podcast talks about is like retirement planning and let's say investments or something. Diversification, oftentimes, it's number one intention isn't like returns or growth, it's to mitigate risk, right? Diversification as a whole, and correct me if I'm wrong as I go along here. Um, the other part of that is kind of going into trade-offs with diversification of industries. I think we'd like to have a more of a diversification of successful industries, but like again, going back to a 101 level economics class, right? If somebody is really good at performing this task or this job, then we should have them do it, right? Because it'll create cheaper goods for the other people, and then they can be better at other things. So I guess there's challenges in trying to force your way into diversification, or trade-offs that might come from trying to force yourself to do something that could be better outsourced. It's kind of like there's the way I see it is there's no good option, right? We need more diversification of successful industries, but there's challenges in trying to implement that. Does that kind of make sense or ring true?
Yeah, so let me just try to summarize what you were saying. So there's two aspects of there's the portfolio analysis, which are the type of thinking, and then there's economic specialization. You're a CPA, correct?
CFP, financial.
CFP.
Yeah.
Okay, but so
Enrolled.
you work in financial planning. So
Yes.
that's what you do every single day,
Right.
right? And presumably you make more money doing that than if you tried to be a farmer, if you tried to like create your own clothes, do everything, because you just know more than that. And so that's what economists talk about exploiting comparative advantage,
Mm.
right? And specialization is like what underlines all of our productivity. It's our wealth. There's no such thing as a professional economist 200 years ago.
Mm.
Now there's lots of them, right? And I don't grow my own food. I don't do everything, and I depend on everything because by spending 15 years of my life getting overeducated, I suddenly can provide a particular service. And that's true for just about a lot of professions, right? Now, that's generally how we want to be productive. Economy is like that, right? And so if people are willing to pay $700 for an average room in Maui,
Mm.
what's wrong with taking that and using that to buy food, right? Like that's probably a lot better in buying food that's even imported than us all trying to grow our own food locally.
Mm.
So that's the general idea there. Now, what you're talking about in terms of diversification is this whole portfolio theory, right? And so the whole portfolio theory is if I only own one stock, it can be a really great stock, but it's really subject to a lot of volatility, right? But if I own 30 stocks, there's actually this is the only free lunch in economics, which is like with portfolio things, I can reduce the amount of volatility while maintaining some certain level of a good amount of return,
Right.
right? That's a totally different subject, right? And so, in terms of diversification, yes, it is better for an economy to be diversified and having more industries because it can weather that. However, there are important returns to scale. So it's good that we have a lot of tourism at hotels, right? And so the airlines are not just servicing one hotel, they're serving lots of hotels. They're serving different things. So we have economies of scale in the visitor industry. We have economies of scale in the military industry.
Mm.
That's normal. When you go to New York, they have lots of different specializations, but because the market is so much bigger, it can handle multiple markets. In Hawaii, we only have 1.4 million people. There's only 900,000 people on Oahu. Like in reality, each island is their own economy.
Mm.
So we don't have the ability to, one, create a comparative advantage through scale in multiple industries. And that's what frustrates a lot of people. We've kept trying to make have more diversification. I'm all for diversification efforts. There's a lot of things we do to keep ourselves from diversifying, and we can talk about that a little bit. But just compared to other islands and compared to most places, you would expect a small, open economy to specialize in certain things. And then there's different ways for example, if we wanted to, diversify or do like portfolio theory, we know we're highly concentrated, so we could save a lot just in case, because we just know we're subject to other things. We could make investments in other places and buy options or something, and then bring that into pay for that, right? So there's different things that we can do. And in a lot of ways, we are very diversified because we're part of the US federal government. We're part of the United States, right? And so even if bad things happen in the United States, we still get fiscal transfers from the government. Or if bad things happen in Hawaii, we still get fiscal transfers from the rest of the United States, the rest of the states that are doing better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.